So I'm in Florida, and I'm with Taffy and Michael Abt, and Taffy is a fisher. She's Mel Fisher's daughter, and Taffy and Michael were in the Uinta Mountains with Mel, hiking around, and so I know there's a lot of rumors about what went on with the Fishers in the Uinta Mountains, so we're going to hear it firsthand right here. So for that, take it away.
Today's the day.
Today's the day.
So, yep, I was the baby in the family and the only girl, so I'm very spoiled. But, yeah, after we found the Atocha in 1985, the big pile, I mean, we're still searching for some more of it. There's plenty more out there, but, you know, a lot of people came and asked Dad to go look at other sites.
He had a file of potentials.
He had drawers of files.
People that contacted us.
Yeah.
Okay.
People called him from,
Come help me find this treasure. Come help me find this treasure.
I got a lead on treasure in Texas, New Mexico, you know, Utah, Tennessee, all over the place.
So I'm going to derail you for just a minute. What happened to that file? You still got that file?
We still got it. I keep the files in a vault.
Okay.
And it's in a big file cabinet called Other Possibilities.
We might have to talk one of these days. Okay.
What was the one in Tennessee? That was a Rhoades Canyon?
No, Rhoades mines were in Utah.
Rhoades was Utah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beal's treasure in Virginia.
Beal's treasure. We went and looked for that for a while too. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, so anyway, there's a lot of stories about treasure in Utah. Michael, tell him, like, the gold rush in California, you know, a lot of people believe that was a decoy.
A decoy for all the gold that was really in Utah.
Right. The Spaniards.
Way back then. The
Spaniards were coming up, you know, spreading Christianity. Yeah. That was their main goal, right?
Yeah.
And while they were doing that, they were looking for gold everywhere, which is really what they were doing. They were looking for gold and spreading Christianity, I think. Well, maybe some of them really believed in it, and some of them were more focused on the treasure and the resources, obviously. They, you know, started out around, you know, in South America and mining all the gold and the silver down there, and up Central America and Mexico, a lot of gold there. And then they started working trails up into North America. It was all, you know, unexplored at the time, and there's a lot of research that shows all these Spanish trails where they were exploring, trying to find more gold in North America, and a lot of theories about certain mines that they found along the way, and how they would use the indigenous people to go in and mine. And the indigenous people, you know, were happy to work with them usually. They were very friendly for the most part, and until they started getting abused, you know, and a lot of them were enslaved. And the Spaniards would find a mine. We heard that they found a couple of mines in Utah, and there were some stories about how the Indians kept bringing out gold, and the Spaniards were saying there wasn't enough. And of course, some of these mines have radioactive material, and some of the Indians started getting sick and dying off, and they didn't want to do it anymore. And so they set up, we've heard stories about how they set up booby traps. So they would tell the Spaniards, yeah, come in, we'll show you where we're getting the gold. And then they would get them in there and set off the booby traps, trap all the Spaniards in there. So there are stories about, you know, you would call it a tomb, I guess, but I would call it just a place where the Indians decided they were tired of being taken advantage of, and they buried a bunch of Spaniards in that cave by, you know, causing a little avalanche to block off the entrance, because the Indians didn't really care about the gold. You know, they were doing it just to be friendly, I think, you know.
But there were stories of those mines, supposedly life-size gold, solid gold figures, and Mel wanted to find them. And
that's my son Josh.
and
John,
sent.
how you doing?
Oh, stop, Mungo.
So we went out there with ground probing radar. We went and some guy from Washington State met us somewhere, and
This is into the Uinta Mountains.
but he showed us in a parking lot how to use this machine
We went a lot of different places, not just the
and
Uinta.
different times of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the first time we went out there was winter, or maybe that was the second time. But we went out there on four-wheelers. Once we learned how to drag the ground probing radar to find the
Oh, you
caves.
did it over the snow?
We did it over snow,
That's a
the
great
mud,
idea, 'cause
the
you
dry,
have a hard
four-wheelers, snowmobiles.
You have a hard time with the sagebrush
We rented
and all that.
I had a Suburban with a trailer with 4 snowmobiles and a sled that we towed for gear and radar, and got out in the mountains, and we had 2 mountain men guides that took us to where we wanted to go and tried to drag this stuff all through the terrain. And then we went out in the summertime on four-wheelers and did the same thing, dragging the ground probing radar, looking for these lost mines, lost caves. Mel even had, he bought infrared film, and we were taking pictures of the mountains and areas we were, and sent the film back to Key West for them to develop them. FedExed it all while we were still out there to see if we got any results, to see if there were any caverns or caves.
Did he get anything?
We never got anything. We the big target up there was Rhoades mine.
Uh-huh.
There's so much speculation
And
about it.
we're on Indian land now.
So you had an agreement with the Indians?
Not yet.
Well, no, wait a
Because they
minute.
don't like
Not
people
yet.
there.
We
Never.
weren't on Indian land. We were right on the border.
Okay.
We were darn close. But there was a man, I don't know if I should say his name, but he supposedly had a house down in the valley.
Moon. Everybody knows
Moon.
Moon.
I don't know if you heard of Moon. But he supposedly has a tunnel from under his house that leads to these hidden caves.
Ah.
Miles and miles long. And we tried to find Moon. Me and Mel and the mountain men are out there searching around metal detectors and looking for landmarks or something, and here comes a pickup. We're out in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and here comes a pickup truck with 2 guys in it, and they stopped and said, "Hey, how you doing? What are you doing? Whatever." And Mel introduced himself. "I'm Mel Fisher, and we're looking for this." And the guy laughed and laughed and laughed, and he said, "You'll never find it." And they drove off.
Huh.
That was Moon.
Oh, really?
That was Moon. That gave me the goosebumps, man. So after that, Mel said, "Michael, call the Indians. I want to set up a meeting with the chief." So we, through channels, we contacted the Indians, drove 100 miles out to their,
The reservation there?
their big office building, and we drove out there and went and everybody, they're cowboys. They ain't Indians.
Yeah.
They're Levi's, plaid shirts, and 4-wheel drive trucks, gun racks, and
Yep.
and we went in this big giant building. The table had to be 30 foot long. Got 6 Indians and the chief down there, and me, Mel, and the 2 mountain men here. And Mel introduced himself, told them who he was, what he did, and his plan for Utah. He wants to come in and with helicopters and radars and search and this and that. And he, with the state of Florida, he donates 20% of his fines here. And the chief went, "You get 5%. Mel went, "5%? I can't work for 5%. Meeting was over.
That was it. Huh?
And we hightails it back to the mountains and kept searching.
Yeah, but we worked in a lot of areas that weren't on reservation
Yeah.
land.
And the chief said, "If the gold is out there and it's on our land, it's technically our gold, and it'll only be found when the time is right. When
Huh.
it's meant to be found,
Yeah.
that's when it'll be found."
Huh.
Yeah. And they didn't care. They did not care. And the meeting was over, and we went wee, back to the mountains. And kept searching until our time was up.
Dad didn't like snow.
Oh, so it got cold.
Yeah. So whenever it was snowing, he would send us kids out there. And he'd say, here's your budget, go meet up with these brothers that have this research, which was very loosely based research. And a lot of it was based on, and my dad was a believer in everything. He believed in dowsing rods, and he believed in psychics. Well, he would give a psychic
He
a
believed
try.
in anything that might find what he was looking for.
Yeah, and he did a lot of reading and a lot of research on his own. But these two fellows, said they thought they had some spots figured out. So.
And he had some dreams that came to him.
Mel did?
These
these two
Utah guys had some really wild stories to tell.
Like what? Can you remember what they
about
said?
when they were out there looking for the caves or the mines, and they got chased by the Indians. The Indians were lined up, on the mountainside, and then they were chased them in his truck or something. And you remember that story?
No, I remember.
I remember she couldn't hold her composure.
Well,
I was enthralled with it. I was like, wow. And
some
she's
of it,
like,
some of
no
it was,
but
they were,
you don't know if it was true.
one of them was like out there meditating and fasting, and I thought, well, he's having hallucinations, because his stories were so wild about how, he would have this vision of this life-sized big pieces of treasure in certain spots, and he went back there and found it, but he couldn't relocate it after that. But he knew he was close, so he wanted us to come out with our ground probing equipment and other stuff. And once we went out there on snowmobiles, and we were following these, and we didn't really know these guys, they were big.
And I didn't know it. And first thing I did, I stopped at a pawn shop. I bought a 30-30 and I mounted it right on my handlebars.
Yeah.
I'm not going out in the mountains in the winter with me and my wife and these two guys I don't know.
Yeah.
And they took us on a freaking wild goose chase.
Well, we went up through, out into the Uintas. There's snow, supposedly, you're not supposed to drive cars out there and stuff. So it was a wilderness area.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really remote, and snow was really deep. If you got off your snowmobile, you would sink up to your thighs. And
the one brother said,
we got lost.
"You stay here with my brother. I'm going to go find the spot that I'm looking for." And he took off alone.
And this is when GPS had just come out.
I remember.
And we had a handheld GPS, but we weren't real good with operating, and we were
They weren't all that great anyway.
No.
It was off, and it took forever. By the time you found,
Well, he left us for
batteries was
he left
dead.
us for like 2 hours. Disappeared.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. And his brother was taking us just around and around to nowhere. And that boy got back. And I took that gun off the rack. I pointed it right at him. I said, "Dude, you do that again, and I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to shoot that machine. I'm going to shoot you in the leg. And I'm going to leave you here." Well, he didn't do that again, and we didn't find anything. And we went snowmobiling all day. That was about it. It was definitely a great adventure.
I think Rhoades was our biggest target. There was a lot of other like Spanish caves that we were looking for. Caves, I would say, indigenous caves where the locals were finding gold, but they weren't real impressed with gold. They were just doing it because the Spaniards were impressed.
Right.
And it was a way to
But
trade things.
I do believe there's something out there, substantial. Whether it's in a cave, a mine, whatever you want to call it. I do believe there's something out there. I'd love to go
I believe
back.
there's lots of treasure out
I think
there.
there's something out there too. But so here's the stories and the rumors that's going around. Tell me, yay, nay. So the story is that you guys found a pink skin map that was sealed in tar, and it was of the Uintas, and you had the gold bars tested, and the bars they tested that came from the Uintas, and you was out there flying helicopters around, had divers in the lake pulling out gold bars. That's the story.
Wow.
There's some good stories going around about you guys.
I wasn't there for that
I
one.
never heard about the one you pulling the gun on somebody though. But I heard
Well, that was a personal thing because I was pretty mad.
yeah.
No, I don't think any of that's true. First of all, we didn't find any skin map on the Atocha. We didn't
But
find.
we did go to the land.
But wait a minute. Let's go. He asked us a specific question. Let's answer it. We found nothing on the Atocha that led us to believe that.
That it came from the Uintas.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nothing. There was no map. There's no.
That was too far inland. They couldn't get their ships in there.
But there, the story, the research about the Spanish trails is true.
Yeah.
And that they were going up there and they were mining gold. They were using the indigenous people to do it. It's all true. There's a lot of factual research on that side of it. It had nothing to do with the Atocha.
Okay.
The gold from the Atocha was mined in Colombia and Mexico. It's kind of like you can get a footprint on it. Like the emeralds, they can tell which mines the emeralds were from.
Oh, I didn't
Because they can do like analysis, break them down in analysis. They can tell you exactly which mine they came from. Like most of the Atocha emeralds are from Museo, Colombia, and then there's some that are from the Chivor mines. It's kind of like DNA in humans. It's that kind of thing. You can tell what region of the world you're from with, you and me and 23 supposedly.
Yeah.
I haven't tried it yet. And
I have.
I want to put some dog slobber in a tube and send it and see what they say, just to see if they come up with something real or not. But but no, you can tell like a lot of silver and a lot of gold can be tested, and you can tell what part of the world it was mined in. And the Atocha gold from all of the research we've done is Mexico and South America.
Okay.
So the treasure on the Atocha wasn't from Utah.
Okay.
But we also heard, like we said in the beginning, that the gold rush in North California was a decoy to lead people away. Certain religious factions up in Utah were in control and supposedly finding things and building underground tunnels to hide things. And it was totally the gold rush. They would take some stuff and throw it in the rivers in North California. Now, I'm not sure I quite believe that, but I guess it's a possibility.
They're still finding gold in California,
Yeah, I don't know
so there's got to be gold there.
Because they do find gold in California.
There's gold
They don't
there.
find. They don't find nuggets in Utah. Very, 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 very rarely. It's all flour gold. There's a lot of gold there, but it's flour gold.
Yeah, but I do believe there could be mines out there, and the politics involved, are it's worldwide. The United Nations is trying to make every thing owned by the government. Some government somewhere owns everything, is what they would if they could have their way. And like the Bureau of Land Management, if you look at the numbers with the National Park Service and the Bureau of Land Management, it's mostly about gas and oil and other things they can mine. And if they own the land and you want to work it, then you have to pay them. And or if they want to work it and you own the land, they can give you a royalty. And there's billions of dollars in this, and it's pretty much online free information. Lindsay's been helping me do a little research on that, and so the government wants to control the resources.
Yes.
And right now, of course, since the mid-'70s, they started making marine sanctuaries all around the United States. A couple off California, and the Great Lakes, Maine area, North Carolina, and Florida, the Florida Keys. And once they get a sanctuary in place, they own all of the resources. The Gulf of Mexico is full of oil wells up by Louisiana area, and I think the long-term goals are to harness the oil and gas industry, and to there's other things you can mine off the bottom, phosphates and things, and Shipwrecks, of course, shipwrecks. There's Gene Lyon says ship soup out there, and there's my dad said they thought there was a shipwreck about every 100 yards.
Wow.
From Havana, Cuba, up to North Carolina.
Really?
But they're not all full of gold.
Right.
Right.
But it's hard to find.
Yeah.
Very hard to find.
So I got another question though. So if and maybe you don't know this, and your family knows all about how to fight the government, how to get to keep, your rights to, I mean, they tried to take all.
We're still learning.
Still learning. So did he have a plan, Mel? Did he have a plan for if he found gold in the Uintas, not on the Indian reservation? Was he going to file a treasure trove for it? I mean, I'm talking gold bars.
I'm
statues.
sure he would have filed some kind of claim.
Yeah, my dad always believed in trying to do things the right way and within the law. And he never wanted to go anywhere and just do it and take it and go away. He liked to report it and document it. It's worth more that way, too.
Yes.
The historical factor of it makes it worth more. So, and he liked history.
And he likes to involve a lot of other people.
He wants everybody to go treasure hunting with him. Everybody he met, he'd say, "You want to go treasure hunting?"
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And he liked sharing the fun romance and adventure of it. He if he thought he knew where it was, he would. If it was on private property, he would talk to the landowners. If it was not, he would contact the government and try to make a deal. We've been all around the Caribbean trying to make deals, to different countries over my lifetime.
Not to get off track, but
the Indians.
And to not talk about Utah, but we were in Tennessee looking for these other treasures with Mel, me, Taffy, and a couple other guys with a ground probing radar. I think it was a ground probing radar. And we found the spot that Mel thought was the good spot. This big giant tree, it was the landmark, and blah, blah, blah. But it was fenced and it had a gate. So we cut the lock off, drove in this property, and found the spot by this big tree, dug with shovels and dug and found a Volkswagen engine hood and some other miscellaneous junk.
Yeah.
So we backfilled our holes and we left the property.
As we're leaving,
a truck pulls up and was the owner of the land. And he said, "What the hell are you doing? This is private property, blah, blah, blah." And Mel pulled out one of his books and says, "Hi, I'm Mel Fisher. I'm the greatest treasure hunter, and blah, blah, blah. This is who we are. This is what we're looking for." And he goes, and the man says, "You cut my lock off the gate." But we went to the store, we bought a new lock. Actually, I think we bought the new lock first.
Bought the new lock when they bought the bolt cutters.
Right. And we
he said, "Well,
we bought you a new lock.
We bought you a new lock. We were going to leave it right here as a new."
So the guy, I think, was a little enthused on who we were and what we were doing.
He said, "If we found anything, we were going to call you."
"I think you're looking in the wrong spot. Let me take you up over here. I think you need to come look over there."
Actually took us to another spot.
Cool.
We didn't find anything
he didn't
there
get
either.
mad. He didn't want to put us in jail or sue us or whatever, and he took us to a whole nother location and said, "I think this is what you're looking for."
But we went down. It wasn't just in the Uintas. We went down in southern Utah too, in some areas, looking in caves and out in really remote areas. And Dad had set us up with headlamps, with
Geiger
batteries.
counters.
We had a Geiger counter with us.
And he said, "Go buy a parakeet."
He says in the old days they'd take
caves.
Yeah.
If the parakeet died, it's time for you to get out.
Yeah.
So we were on four-wheelers and we went out and we found this spot that we thought was a good spot, and then we started walking in the cave, and we got as far in as you could go.
Until there was no more light.
I couldn't see the entrance, and I kind of got claustrophobic and panicked a little bit, and I said, "I'm going out. I'm going back. You guys keep going, I'm going back." I got a little nervous.
We hit a dead end, though.
So I went out and waited, and they came out a little while later and said it was a dead end. And it wasn't a dead end.
We didn't have a parakeet either.
And it wasn't a dead end where it was boulders blocking it, like it might have been a booby trap. It was like a mine where someone just stopped digging.
Yeah, but it went in a long ways. till it was darkness, and
Yeah.
it wasn't like a cave-in or anything.
So I guess
It looked like they stopped digging.
spelunking.
Yeah.
A little bit of spelunking.
So some hypothetical questions for you. So, and maybe, this was all Mel, and maybe you guys don't do this type of thing anymore, but I know, man, you was around him and you learned, and you probably right there side by side with him doing it, but say you had a place where it was found a cave full of gold bars, and it's on wilderness area, and that, the laws are that the government, you can't have it. I mean, it's antiquities. Other than, I guess you could file a treasure trove permit. How would you go about dealing with
First thing I'd do is get a good lawyer.
First thing I'd
Because-
do is hide what I found until we've straightened it out.
Would you tell the government? Would you do it? Would you do a
If
treasure
you
trove
wanted,
permit?
I think
and
if
try
you
to-
wanted to continue and try and pursue salvaging, you'd have to.
Yes, I
But
would.
Have you heard of
if you wanted them not to take what you already found and confiscate everything, then I'd put it aside until we figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. In the
That's
ocean.
me personally.
In the ocean, you can, if you're within the state waters, you can arrest it. And you go into a federal court and you have federal marshal arrest the gold bar. Or the
But
cannon.
that's
or the
also
anchor.
outside of a sanctuary or outside of state-owned
Right,
waters.
It's in state waters. Actually, it's anywhere. It's wherever you find it.
So what you do?
And then the federal judge will put it in your custody. And then, if anyone else wants to make a claim on it, they have to come into the federal court. So because you're the first finder, you have more rights. But it doesn't mean it's yours, because
Right.
it could be something where, so-and-so insurance company paid a claim on that when it was lost, and they're supposed to get a piece. So, you got to...
400 years ago, or
it's
600 years ago.
It's possible, though.
It is possible, yes.
I don't know about on land, but I mean, certainly in the ocean, Lloyd's of London's been in business a long time, insuring people's stuff on ships. And if they made payouts, then you have to reimburse them for the payouts they made. The payouts they made are probably small compared to what it's valued at today anyway, especially with all of the proper documentation and legal finding it. Makes it more valuable doing it the right way.
Right.
I would always try to go the right way. That's just me.
And I would honor that.
If I was down on the bottom in an area where I had an exploration permit, which means you're just supposed to be looking and not bringing things up, and I see an intact chest of coins that looks like this big, I think I'm going to have to bring it up. I would document it on the bottom, do whatever archaeology is necessary, but I would then.
Because tomorrow it might be covered in 10 foot of sand.
Or it might, or anybody that's on the boat. It's hard to keep secrets once you find treasure too.
Right.
Everybody hears about it really fast. News travels fast.
Yeah.
I would bring it up. I would document it, photograph it, measure it in situ, right where it was found, what was around it, bring it up. And then I would tell them, hey, this is what we found. And we would like the contract to not just be exploration, but to be salvage or recovery. And, if
What's
you need
that old saying? It's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission.
No, it's easier to get forgiveness than it is to get permission. Yeah,
Something like
but
that.
there's certain exceptions, but obviously, if you have a target and a plan and an area, and you want to go in and get permission first to do the searching.
Well, these days you have to do that, or they'll confiscate everything you own.
Well, you don't have to
You know?
if you're just doing some initial research. You might go
unless
in.
you find something, you really don't have to.
Yeah.
You go out exploring.
Yeah,
all you
exploring. Yeah, you can go out and do magnetometer surveys. And you don't even have to have a permit or a license to do it. You just do it. But once you find some anomalies and you want to go investigate them, things get a little more complicated. And a lot of it you can just do visually. You don't have to dig or anything.
Yep.
You can just go and take a look underwater or on land. Seems like land's a lot more complicated than water because, most land is owned by someone.
Yeah.
And underwater, it's still kind of undefined.
Private property, it's easier because then you can deal with the landowner. But if it's government owned,
Wilderness or state park or national park or.
I've honestly never been able to find anything on land that we went far enough
to look into
to
that,
deal
how you
into the
can keep
legality
it.
part
Yeah,
of it
okay.
because we never found anything substantial on land. We've done a lot of hunting all over the place, but it is fun,
Sure is.
So one other question, just your opinion, because you fought the government, you've
Fighting still.
still fighting the government.
Well,
Oh.
on the Atocha site, we fought the government for 7 years, went through 150 something hearings because we beat the government. The state of
And 3 or
Florida.
4 in the Supreme Court.
The state of Florida came in first and said it was theirs, and then the federal government came in and said it was theirs.
And they confiscated it all and took it up to Tallahassee and put it in a jail cell.
Well, they kept it all for like 7 years, and
Really?
we were arguing about it in court, and we won. And they appealed it, and we won the appeal, and then they appealed it again, and it took 7 years and 150 hearings and an ungodly amount of legal fees.
Yeah. But
But it finally went to the United States Supreme Court, and we won 100% ownership of the Atocha and Margarita. So,
did you get it all back?
Not 100%.
well, most of it. They were ordered because when they saw that they were losing and it was not heading in their direction, they said, well, maybe we should do division where we get our 25%. And then after the court things are all done, if we lose, maybe they'll just let us keep what we already have. And that was not what the judge said. The judge said you have to give back everything you took from them and pay their legal fees. And so they went to give us back, and for the most part, the majority of the stuff was back. A lot of it was lost in cleaning. Like there were some emeralds inside of this gold cup that we found. It was crushed when it was found, and we had a photograph of it, and you could see the emerald in this one it had little mounts all the way around the inside of the cup, and you could see this nice little dark green emerald in the original photo. And then when we got the cup back, all the mounts were empty, and they said, oh, there never was emeralds in it. And we showed them that original photo, and they said, oh, they must have dissolved in cleaning. So there was some things that, there was quite a few small pieces, which, things do get lost in cleaning even when we're doing the conservation. But yeah, so for the most part, we got most of it back. And my dad said, my dad was a patriot. He was in the Army in World War II, and he loved America, and he said we have the best country in the world. The best, he says, and it's really proven when you can go to court against the government and win.
Yeah.
That won't happen in many other countries
That's
around
true.
the world. And he was a real patriot, and he always had a lot of faith in the government. And I think a lot of our government officials are honest. I think bureaucratics are a little different. There's people you can vote in and vote out. And then there's people who are appointed into jobs that seem to never go away. They're not elected.
Yeah, there are problems.
If they're not elected, they become an issue. And that's what you have with these National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, NOAA's sanctuary plan. None of them are elected.
And so with that said, you was talking about NOAA the other day and signed the petition. Tell us a little bit about NOAA and why you're passionate about that and what they're trying to do to you.
Well, NOAA has created this, it's kind of like a national park system underwater. And it's called National Marine Sanctuaries. And they say it's in the name of the environment. And they really use that because there are so many people who are so passionately zealous about protecting the environment. And believe it or not, I'm very passionate about protecting the environment myself. I mean, I want my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to enjoy this planet too.
Yeah.
I'm all for keeping it clean, protecting species, and being responsible about what you do. And I think that the most of the people on the ground at these agencies and parks really believe that they're doing it for the right reasons, and they're in it for the right reasons. The problem is most of them are pawns in a bigger game, and the bigger game involves people at upper levels who are more interested in the resources. And when I say that, I mean the gas, the oil. I mean, they have this whole agency called the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. And what they're doing is they're studying all the wind patterns and all of the current patterns, and they're preparing to put in windmills and water turbines to collect the energy and sell it to the people. They want a piece of the action. It's money. It's money related. Same with gas and oil. Anywhere where you can drill for oil or get natural gas out of the ground, the government wants to control it and have a piece of the action financially. So,
and some of them get outrageous paychecks.
well, yeah. And shipwrecks doesn't sound like much to a lot of people. But there are some shipwrecks that are extremely valuable. And like the Atocha was one example. There's many other ships like that out there. I mean, you just have to do the research and find the right ships. And it's a lot of hard work. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Yes.
So the archaeologists, just like on land, they fight. And archaeologist is just a word that, okay, archaeologist is a profession. People go to school, they get a degree, now they're an archaeologist. And then they created these clubs, only archaeologists can be in, and they have a very strict code of ethics. And part of their code of ethics, I think, is to stop people who haven't gone to school from doing what they want to do. Because and I haven't researched this, but somebody said a lot of the people who originally went out and got this archaeology degrees, in when it first became a really big thing, couldn't find jobs once they got their degree after going to school for so long and studying. And so they made a bunch of rules that if you didn't agree with their rules, that you couldn't do it.
No,
archaeologists. And a lot of the rules that, initially, there's a lot of different scenarios. If you're working on a land site and something is buried, and I'm not real familiar with working a lot of archaeology land sites. I'm not an expert. But I can tell you on an underwater site that it's usually, especially particularly in salt water, salt has a natural reaction to metals, with the exception of gold. And the chemical reaction between the salt and the metal creates rust. Everybody knows iron rust, silver and other artifacts, other metals. The sand, the chemical reaction causes sand to cling to it, and it causes corrosion and erosion of that metal. It eventually gets a crust around it, but there's ongoing deterioration even within that crust until the iron, and like iron, for example, will completely oxidize and will be gone. It will be like a powder inside. So if you were to break open that crust, there would be nothing left.
Okay.
And silver is that way too. Not quite as bad as iron, but it does deteriorate. It deteriorates over time, and if you're depending on the environment where the ship sank, like on the east coast of Florida, there's constant wave action and sand moving, and every winter there's big storms, and in the summer there's hurricanes. All of this is continuous action. It is continuing to break and erode the things more, and then there's teredo worms. Anywhere where there's wood, it's like an underwater termite. They are like a little, tiny worm that gets embedded in the wood, and it eats the wood, and it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
Now, an archaeologist, and when they first started finding sites that were considered important, the pyramids and such, they said, well, the entire collection must stay intact, because you don't know what we might find in that dirt. There might be seeds we've never seen from, or things that didn't exist. We might learn stuff. Well, in theory, in the beginning, it might have sounded good, but today, there have been so many sites found and so many things brought up and donated. The institutions like, for example, the Smithsonian can't even keep track of all the stuff they have, their collections. And they get to a point where, okay, they have 100 boxes from this dig that was done when somebody wanted to build a house. They do a lot of bulldozer archaeology, okay? Marriott wants to build a hotel, and somebody found a skeleton that's 300 years old. So they have to do an immediate, quick archaeological dig to clean that out, because Marriott's going to build a hotel. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. So if you want to save that archaeology stuff, get it out of our way.
Yeah.
So that's, bigger companies with more money can get things done faster. So they'll hire a little team to come in, and they do all the archaeology, and they measure it all out and photograph it and dig it out. They put it all in boxes, and they take it somewhere.
Yeah. Warehouse.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah.
Then it sits. And there's so much stuff that's, in storage that people have lost track of what's where. And a lot of they've run out of room. So then they'll go, well, and the National Park Service has a really big article about this.
Stop bringing stuff up.
They're like, well, we don't have enough room anymore. We have these 25 drawers, and they'll open a drawer and say, well, what is this? Well, these are chicken bones that were found. These were chickens that were eaten by the people who were doing the trail wagons, what do you call it, settlers.
Wagon trails.
This was the wagon trail, and these are the things we found on the wagon trail. These are the chicken bones.
And our 50,000 square foot warehouse can't hold any more stuff.
They're like, well, we have this whole drawer full of chicken bones. You can still get chicken bones today. We still eat chicken bones. They're not any different chickens from the chickens today. And we need this drawer for these new artifacts, so let's deaccession this, they say. So they have this deaccession policy, which means they can take it and throw it in the trash can, as long as they say, we had to deaccession this, it was rotting, or you might open the next drawer down, and all the stuff that was in there was leather shoe soles from that trail. Well, guess what? They weren't concerned, because nobody's asked to look at them for 80 or 100 years, and now when you pick it up, even in your white gloves, it falls apart. There's not enough storage facilities, there's not enough staff, there's not enough money, and there's not enough interest to save every chicken bone, every shoe sole, every button, every whatever. There's not enough room, there's not enough money, there's not enough people. And so who gets to decide what we keep and what we get rid of,
or what we can salvage?
So so then they say, well, you need to stop salvaging because we're out of room to store stuff. Well, that's stupid, because the stuff that they're saying, leave it in situ, which is their preferred method. They actually said this in the new sanctuary rules. The preferred method of shipwreck conservation is in situ preservation, which means leave it on the bottom buried.
Let it rot.
and it's going to
Get
rot.
destroyed.
It's going to get, there's people netting, dragging nets, there's anchors, there's, there's just the natural corrosion from the salt water and the interaction of the other things down there. They're even saying there's a iron-eating bacteria on the Titanic now, that's actually eating the iron.
Wow.
I mean, there's so many reasons that it's going to disappear if we don't get it out. If you try to do some conservation. Now, so if you don't have, and you can't keep it all together as an intact collection, first of all, there's not enough places and people. Second of all, and they want to do it in perpetuity and forever. They want to save it forever for future generations to study. It's just not going to happen. There's not enough. So the other thing is, okay, so the intact collection is a fallacy and needs to be dealt with. How can we deal with that? Well, gee, if you bring up 100,000 silver coins and you do 100,000 musket balls and 100,000 pottery shards and 500 silver plates from one particular shipwreck, let's say, and a couple hundred gold chains, couple hundred gold bars, 1,000 silver bars maybe, like the Atocha, and you do photographs of these pieces front and back. You do drawings, you weigh them, you measure them, you document it, and that's the old-fashioned way. Today, we're digitizing them. I mean, let's face it, the technology is there. You can take all of this stuff and put it into a database. You can put the photos of the pieces in the database. People from across the world can go online to Mel Fisher's online, melfisher.com, and you can go to our research section, and you say you're a button collector, and you say, can you show me the buttons on the shipwreck? Boom. You don't even have to put in your email address. It's free. It's got over 150,000 records. We put it out there just for you.
You have that too.
That's what I'm talking about.
You've done that. And
I did it.
Melfisher.com.
That's right.
Thank you for doing that for all of us.
And it's free. You don't even have to give us your email address.
Thank you.
And so, and so we're getting ready to add in another 100,000 records from the 1715 fleet. And, I'm not saying that the government hasn't done anything like that, but so now we have all this in this database. We have photographs. And as long as you are aware of the possibility that all these programs will change next year, and you need to upgrade your software and your photos and everything so it stays accessible, and you make backup copies at different servers in different parts of the world in case this facility gets wiped out by a hurricane, you have a backup of the information over there in another state. So we're doing all that, trying to stay one step ahead, preserve the data.
You guys are awesome.
So,
Thank you.
I mean, I just don't know why then you would need to save those 100,000 coins. How many coins can you put on display in a museum?
Yeah.
It's, there's a certain example of each one. You can put them on display. Potosi mint from 4 different years with 6 different assayers. There's Mexico mint from 10 different years with 10 different assayers. Okay, there's your collection. You got 20 coins. Now you got 148,980 left. They should be sold, returned to commerce, and that money can be used to go find some more history and bring it in and conserve it so it doesn't rot on the bottom. So it's the in situ preservation. It's really a bad idea. The intact collection is a bad idea. And then the last thing, which they always use this as a last resort, I think, is, it's a sacred burial ground. This is a hallowed site where these people died. It's like a cemetery. We should, honor them and leave. Man, I tell you what, if you had a couple school buses on their way on a field trip filled with kids and a tornado hit them, you're not going to leave the buses full of dead kids on the side of the road. It's not a burial ground. It's not a sacred burial mound. It's an accident site. Shipwrecks are accident sites.
Good point.
That burial cemetery thing, that's just, I don't know. That's, I can understand, maybe, I can't even understand preserving a military ship. If it's a military ship that has secrets on it. Like, there might be some reason for national security. Okay, we have some nuclear technology.
Even maybe modern day, but
No, even back-
400-year-old shipwrecks. What kind of secrets are they going to hold?
There's a really big issue right now with and this is going to come big soon. And this is part of why I think another reason why they're trying to kick this off. There's hundreds and hundreds of shipwrecks, thousands. They have databases. The government has databases of all the ships that sank in World War II. They're starting to rot. They have places they've used as trash yard dumps. I don't know what you want to call it. Where this ship was decommissioned, let's go sink it. They have piles. You can look on a NOAA chart and it says, this is a no zone, and it's a military dump site. I mean, it's there. Even now.
Isn't that kind of polluting the ocean?
And everything's starting to break down, and the stuff, the metal and the heavy metals and the ammunitions and whatever. Even if it was a ship that sank in service, it's got stuff on it that's gonna pollute the ocean. Mm-hmm. They're not going out and cleaning up all their trash. Why are they after Spanish galleons? Why aren't they after cleaning up their own stuff?
The government's out looking for Spanish galleons too.
Oh yeah.
Or they want to stop everybody else from looking.
Yeah, they don't want us to do it. And they want to, there have been some.
I wonder what they would do if you went and looked for a World War II ship and tried to salvage it.
Oh no.
Would they stop you?
Anything over 50 years old, it belongs to the government.
Yeah.
50 years old. So all that World War II stuff is now theirs. And particularly if it's a military ship, then it definitely belongs. Well, let's put it this way: the United States military considers all of their vessels, no matter where they're sunk in the world, to still be U.S. property unless it's expressly abandoned, which means in writing. So if you found a military ship, and you wanted to work it, you could approach the Navy and ask for permission, and they might give it to you if you do the conservation and put together a museum and that kind of thing. But they're very touchy about it.
So there's a petition going around for this NOAA deal. How do people sign
All
it?
you got to do is go to Say No to NOAA. That's SAYNOTONOAA.org. And you can just sign a petition. It's real simple. NOAA's trying to expand the sanctuary in the Florida Keys, make it bigger.
Putting people out of business.
They're trying to put in all kinds of new regulations, make a bunch of places where people can't go, like Sandbar Sunday. Oh, you can't go to that sandbar anymore. Or this back island where we all used to go to the beach. No, you're not allowed to go there. Fishermen aren't allowed to fish. There's no zones. Fishermen.
Yeah, but what happens when one of their boats runs aground and tears up 500 feet of seagrass? What happens to them? What kind of penalty do they get?
They don't get penalized because they're out there. They're out there in the name of science, trying to do good, so they don't get penalized.
The fishing guy that took him out fishing got penalized.
Yeah. There was a guy recently took a bunch of NOAA people out fishing, and he took him to a spot, and I guess one of them caught something that was either out of season or whatever, and I think he was like, I don't know if he was reading the paper while they were fishing, and they got boarded by Fish and Wildlife, and some of the stuff they had they weren't supposed to have. And instead of the NOAA people who caught the fish getting in trouble, the guy who owned the boat got in trouble and fined. That's just
fishing in a protected area rather than the type of fish they brought up.
Yeah, well, whatever it was,
I didn't
it
hear
was
about that
like,
one.
and that was just recently in the last 6 months. A lot of people were mad about that. The shipwrecks, obviously, it used to be, Florida is one of the few states where people can go still work shipwrecks and do a deal with the government where you give the government back in kind, or like if you found 100 coins, you give them 20. They're only allowed to take a certain amount of the coinage because they are not supposed to have too much repetition. They've got a really good law, and they've worked on it a long time with the people who've salvaged here over the years. But it's deteriorating too.
Terrible.
Yeah, it is deteriorating. That law is deteriorating and getting changed. So we're trying to make some changes on that. I think we're just going to have to change some laws. Some of the antiquities laws are antiquities and need to be rewritten. They need to be rewritten, and people need to rethink what were you thinking. Well, we thought that we'd have endless money, endless storage, and endless people who would be interested in working on this, and we don't. They've created a museum on a Civil War wreck that has very low attendance. They thought they'd have more attendance. They don't. So they don't have enough money to finish conserving the pieces they brought up from the Monitor because they didn't have the attendance and they can't get the grants. And a lot of these government-run archaeology projects are grant dependent. And so like I looked at Noah's budget last year, they had a big budget cut. Like I think they had $4.5 billion in their budget.
Wow.
And that was that was like a $1 billion decrease. And I said, I wonder what they cut out of their budget. And I looked through it. It was all grants. All of the money that they cut out of their budget was grant money they were giving away. It didn't touch their real budget. So it's you have to really dig deep into these things and fight them. Just keep fighting them. Part of my legacy, my family legacy, is finding treasure. The other part is fighting the government and trying to make them be realistic and stay in line.
Thank you guys for doing that.
You're welcome.
She's very persistent and adamant about her livelihood and her
legacy.
I think we can bring them around. I think we could just have to show
passionate.
Show the truth. Show the truth and then talk. I don't know. I hope we can. Otherwise, I'm not speaking for myself because I'm always going to do my best to stay within the law.
Yeah.
But if they don't be realistic and reasonable, there's going to be a lot more pirates.
Well, that's on
and the history will be lost.
That's already happening on the land. The history is being lost. There's a lot of pirates because, the government won't work with you, and that's stupid.
That's sad.
It's sad.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions?
I just got one quick question. So,
all right.
So you know about Victoria Peak, White Sands Missile Range, Doc Nos, all the gold bars there, the military.
I don't.
Oh. Okay.
Are they land sites?
It's a land site. Doc Nos founded in the 20s, the 30s.
Where's it at?
I'm sure you guys
New
have heard
Mexico.
about it. Over.
New Mexico? Is this like Area 51, you mean?
No, it's White Sands.
Are you
Missile
sure?
Range. Yeah.
Are you sure Area
Missile
51
range.
isn't a gold mine?
Well, it could be. Anyways, when Doc Nos found all these gold bars in there, it was back when you couldn't own gold. They filed a claim, treasure trove claim on it. The military came in, put a base there. The Nosses got word that the military was in there getting gold bars out. They figure, it's a big long conspiracy theory that JFK got killed over it, Johnson was getting it, and all kinds of things like that. I think all the gold's gone out of there, but do you think, just hypothetical, do you think the owners of that treasure trove permit would have a right, if they could prove somehow that the military went in and got that, do you think they have a right to assume? Do you think that'd be a winnable thing?
Repatriation, it's there. What I said was the key thing is first finder. First finder is a big deal. Legally.
Yeah, boy, to fight.
It'd be a tough case.
And the government over that.
I don't know how you guys fought the
It'd take a
government.
lifetime.
Yeah, it would, but
It'd be a lifetime.
you guys did it. Your dad did it.
Yep.
And I would have thought that would have been a no-win situation. But
Not
you
your
won.
uncle?
You won, huh?
Is that his not your uncle?
No, but
I'm just kidding.
I have a friend who bought back in the 70s, bought 30% of that treasure trove permit for $90,000 back in the 70s. And I'm just curious for him if I know it would be the only way you could do it is if you found somewhere that would take it on contingencies, and how would you really prove that the military got in and got it and took it? And
It'd be
all
tough
that?
because even today, like in the Florida Keys, our superintendent. Okay, first of all, we started looking for the Atocha in like 1969.
Wow.
You know, and it took a long time. We found the biggest chunk we found so far was in 1985, after 16 years of searching.
You found little stuffs along the way to keep
little
you going?
bits and pieces just keeps, egging us on. 16 years, though, to the mother lode, okay? And then 5 years later, they make a sanctuary. Now, we haven't got it all, and we know we haven't got it all because we have the manifest. And also on the Margarita, the sister ship, we found like 150% of contraband, stuff that wasn't listed. Hundreds and hundreds of gold chains, some with big links, some with little links, one of them 67 feet long.
Wow.
Because jewelry was not taxable. So there was lots of gold chains on the ships. There's so much stuff that's not on the manifest. Actually, most of the key pieces we found, the most valuable pieces, the astrolabes, the gold plate, the emerald crossing ring, the gold cup, the box of pearls, some of the gold bars, all of the gold chains, none of that was on the manifest.
They were kind of fighting the government in their own way back then.
Yeah, they were still smuggling. They were still doing tax evasion back then. So,
is your family still looking?
oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. You can come out and dive on the Atocha with
Going on
us.
50
Cool, that'd be
years.
fun.
Going on 50 years.
Yeah,
Actually, it is 50 years.
my son
They've not heard
You
Melvin.
on speed dial?
My son Melvin works in the investor relations department. He'd love to talk to anybody who wants to go dive the
And right now,
Atocha.
he's out on a boat for a few days. They just went out and left
This
today.
morning, they
Cool.
left this morning to go out to the Atocha
And
site.
Josh works down there a lot, too.
Yeah, Josh works on the Margarita. He's captain of the Sea Reaper boat with MRR, another company.
Awesome.
And so the next generation is here. And we want them to be able
That's
to keep
gonna be
working.
tough on 'em
And
with the
now
new
they can
rules
do
coming
it.
in. It's
They
gonna
can
be
do it.
Yeah.
They can do it.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So I think that's a wrap, and thank you.
You're welcome.
I do got-
Today's the day, baby.
Today's the day.
Today's the
Yeah.
day.